Namaste. How are ya? I hope you are well. I'm doing pretty well myself. So, in my last talk, I kind of went over a little bit of my journey of awakening, starting with my experience with DMT and ending with yoga and Ram Dass. And I also left out a little piece about how there was a conflict going on in my interpersonal life. And, you know, the conflicts that, are really sticky and dense and heavy, when those things come up, those are such great opportunities for spiritual growth. And I think just the accumulation of the stuff I had been through, as leading up to that point of awakening, along with it was the learning about spiritual stuff, it was the understanding that there is something deeper, there is something more beyond what I understood or know, and then interpersonal conflict, a little psychedelic assistance with the microdosing, and then the voice of Neem Karoli Baba through Richard Alpert, who is now Ram Dass. Plus yoga. All of that in that one moment, boom. It broke the wheel. And that wheel is meant to keep you on it. There's a wheel going on. I don't know, I can't remember I think I talked about this in the mandala one, where the wheel is a mandala. And it's based off of two levels. One level is the way it looks. So the wheel is spinning. You're experiencing one piece of the wheel, one section of that mandala at a time. And it looks different every time you look at it. But even though you're looking at something different, it represents a common pattern. So you could be looking at a jar of peanut butter, and one day you're like, you've basically been fasting for 2 days. You're looking at the peanut butter. It's your, and you're like, man, I remember when I was eating peanut butter as a kid and made these peanut butter balls. They're so flavorful, and like that's all you want to do is just eat that peanut butter. And that's just like the most joy and happiness that could ever be. And then, a week goes by, you're eating, you're like, you're full, you're not starving anymore. And, maybe you went to the doctor one of those days during the week to get an allergy test, and you found out you're actually allergic to peanut butter. And so now you look at that same jar of peanut butter and you're like a little repulsed by it, a little repelled, like, damn, it's almost like it's like a bee, it's like, man, I don't want to get too close. That could bite me. That could sting. It's the same image. Of course, it could be a different jar of peanut butter, maybe different levels of peanut butter. It's going to look a little different. It's the same thing, though. It's peanut butter. But it has a completely different context. You know, first it was food, yummy. Second, it was danger, death. And that's the wheel. You know, it's constantly changing, and it's like, okay, here's good, here's bad, here's sadness, here's happiness, here's sorrow, here's creativity, blah, blah, on and on and on. And then you're seeing whatever patterns and images, shapes that are in those sections. And it just keeps turning and turning, and your experience is witnessing all along the way. And on this first plane of experience, that's all we're doing. All we're doing is experiencing the wheel. And then eventually we come to a point where there's an escape, an exit. And we go out the exit. And then we see the whole wheel. And we're like, oh wow, that's what it is. Interesting. So then if that's what it is, where am I now? And where you are then, that's the truth. That's the isness, the beingness. And so within the isness and beingness, which is the capital S self, in lies relative reality, concepts, understanding, seekers, illusions, all that stuff. So now after you've hit the escape, the Control-Alt-Delete on this wheel of the first level, now the practice is reconciling second level values with the first level rational and logic. Because if I go back into the wheel and I start talking to people and I'm like, okay, stop thinking, stop judging, stop using labels, even stop using words. Don't even think in words. There is no right and wrong. You can't do anything. Everything is perfect. You take, on the first level, you could take all of that and you can spiritually bypass. You can, the extreme would be becoming a wandering sadhu. Just becoming a homeless person, sitting on the streets of LA, digging through trash. Because it just, there's nothing. But then the extreme on the other way, the extreme first level, is like billionaires, is like underground secret societies where they just become so absorbed in sense pleasures that they forget about humanity. So you have these two extremes. And that's where the practice comes in. I think what we can do to practice is involving ourselves, immersing ourselves on the first level. Such as writing down your goals, creating a vision, finding purpose, acting on your goals, acting to form your vision, but not being attached to what happens. Like if we can be on that first level, just experiencing the wheel and really take it in. Ooh, I'm really sad. I'm really happy. This food is so good. Or, man, I am so tired. And just take it in without being identified to it. Just seeing, wow, this is how feelings are. How cool. You know? And keeping some sort of bright light or some sort of like star in the sky that you can keep your trajectory on all along, letting the wheel spin. Just let the wheel spin inside of you while you're moving towards that star. And that star is your goals, your vision, whatever you think you want. Because when you keep your attention focused on the future like that, in the moment, you're authentically creating boundaries and respecting boundaries. You can say, okay, as far as I know, this is appropriate in this moment. It's appropriate for me to do this so that I can get that star to become isness. And then as you're being authentic and you're working within these appropriate boundaries, shit's gonna happen. Life is gonna get all crazy. You're gonna witness suffering. There's gonna be pain. And that is when you go out the window and just become and allow the wheel to spin and pass without becoming too stuck on it. And that's the whole thing. Like the wheel is sticky. It's a big adhesive. And so when you can shape yourself and exit, and these are mental concepts. When you do this, you're able to bear life better. It's as simple as it is. Nobody on earth living right now is here because life stinks. We're all here because there's something that gives us pleasure. We enjoy being here. Now, karma's a real thing too. So we did something we got pleasure from. And because the wheel is only seeing one aspect at a time, everything consists of two. Consists of what it is and what it's not. And that duality permeates through the whole wheel because you can only see one aspect at a time. It's made of aspects. So you did something you were that pleasured you. It's one aspect. And then the wheel turns and then you see what that aspect is not, what the opposite of it is. And then you go through that. So when people go through a hard time, it's because they went through something they liked. Or it's because they're going to go through something they like. And going through hard times can be fatal. And so having the opportunity to go through or make some sort of exit or window out of the wheel could save your life and could save other people's lives and can make people suffer less. And if you haven't broken out of the wheel yet, of pleasure and pain, loss and gain, fame and shame, it's all the same. Anyway, that's an old thing. If you haven't broken out of that yet, then point yourself towards that. Point yourself towards breaking out of this limited view that's basically controlling the way you experience things. Break out of that so that you're able to suffer less, enjoy things more, and help other people do the same. That's pretty simple. So there's an interesting concept I wanted to explore a little bit. I hope I primed people enough for this, and if not, whatever. I hope so. Okay, so the wheel is objective reality. Let's just call it that. Whatever we experience, there's some sort of objective thing that's being experienced. You're subject experiencing an object. Okay, so let's just visualize a ball. Let's visualize a crystal that you're looking at. Just look at a crystal if you have one. The crystal is objective. That's solid. That ain't going anywhere. You can reflect light off of it. You can whatever. But that's a crystal. Your interpretation of it is whatever vantage point, however you're viewing it right now, plus whatever judgments, meaning, and understanding you have from it. Okay? So in between that crystal and you, there's a flow. And that flow is going two ways. One way, from you to the crystal, that flow is called meaning. From the crystal to you, that's called connection. So we are connecting to objective reality through meaning. Simple. When we're separating meaning, when we sever meaning, we sever connection to objective reality. We sever connection to the crystal, to objective reality. And then we sit back into the capital S self, beingness, understanding. And so when we're practicing spiritual things, we're practicing on severing a connection to objective reality. And we do that by letting go. We let go of our thoughts, our judgments, our words, our labels. We let go of meaning. We sit back into being. And then once we're ready, we can go back into objective reality through meaning. We just start forming meaning again. That's what spiritual practice does. And then I don't know if you're following here. I hope it's becoming clearer that what we're doing is building a window, which could also be severing meaning from objective reality, in order to not suffer so much. And I'm not saying that we can't reconnect to reality, to what's going on, because we can. We just start forming meaning again. But it's going to be in a more a higher consciousness. You're more aware. You're not caught up in the doingness of experience. A really interesting tool that we have on spiritual practice is sounds. I was thinking of voices as a yoga. You know, they have like all sorts of different yogas. They have Jnana yoga, karma yoga, bhakti. They have all this different stuff. But voices as a yoga, it's like using similar voices to speak a certain philosophy or religion in order to go through the window, to be connected with God. So it's like you use a spiritual teacher because they have a certain voice and they speak certain words. And just by turning them on, podcast or something, you shift from first level into heart level. Because, okay, so, and I probably skipped a step, because the heart level is where you act from inside of the first level. The heart level is the integration of God and intellect. Your doingness on this wheel, on the first level, is through the heart. And if it's not through the heart, then you need a window in order to get beyond the wheel and then come back in through the heart. So that's the deal. That's where the connection comes from. You sever meaning, and then you reconnect through the heart. Because the wheel is glued onto people's minds. That's all they think about. That's all that they can perceive is the wheel and all of its glory and atrocity. And then they're living through their mind, living through an intellect. You sever meaning, which is intellectual. You reconnect through your heart. And then there's a more radiant meaning between yourself and the things that go on. And it doesn't matter what it is that helps you make a window and go through it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I would urge you to find a religious practice, spiritual practice, it doesn't matter. Just find some environment where you can get the context. And once you have a context, now you can start putting it together. And you'll have help. You're not just going to be putting it together yourself. Life is going to happen. And then you're going to have a feedback between life and your understanding. And eventually, you're going to get off the wheel. It's natural. It's how things operate. It's really interesting how, we think of evolution and advancement as an intellectual endeavor. But there's the ability to shut off the intellect, which is at an even higher level of evolution. It's like a telepathy. You don't have to think in order to do. You can look into somebody's eyes without speaking, and you're connected intimately. Why is that? Is that because of our rational minds? I don't think so. I think our ability to appreciate the moment can have something to do with our intellectual minds. Because it's like, I could be looked at as rich or poor right now. A lot of people would be like, damn, this guy is rich. And a whole lot of people would be like, man, this guy is he's struggling. I could never live like that. It's all where you're coming from. And when you're coming from the intellectual headspace, and then you have a moment where you can connect with somebody on a level that's beyond words, that could be more profound. And that's why I'm not telling people to go be a wandering sadhu somewhere, to just wander and look like a bum. That's why I'm not doing that. It's because there's so much joy and pleasure in life all the time. And then when there's not, there's just isness and appreciation. And that appreciation of what is grace. When you can sit back in being and just appreciate what's going on, no matter what's going on. It's Ah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's let's see if we can do that. Can you feel how beautiful everything is right now? Forget about beautiful. Forget about everything. Just experience this. Oh yeah. This is good. I hope you all have a wonderful and delightful rest of your day.